Greetings, everyone. Welcome back. And I find myself sitting down once again with this concept of Slash attending Hogwarts. Although secretly not graduating, because I can imagine that, although I'm sure he was a great student, but just for, sake of how rock and roll someone should be, maybe he would have got kicked out. But anyway, who knows? So I'm still just kind of playing around with the idea. It's kind of fun to think about certain things. So I didn't look this up yet to find out if, somebody else, was creating something about this. Like I said, I wanted this to run through my mind first before discovering, that somebody else kind of fleshed this out before I look into it. And the reason why I would do it that way is because I don't really want to be influenced. But I did do a little bit of research, not lots, on Slash's hat. So one story is that he may have done one of those magical five-finger discounts with his very first one. That he wouldn't have paid for it. I don't know if that's the most awesome thing in the world, but like I said about, perhaps getting kicked out of Hogwarts might still kind of fall in line with that as a possibility of how rock star somebody is, and I wouldn't condone that as a trait of rock stars. But for our little concept here, we are not going to look at it that way. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on a possibility of a hat's introduction to our character. Not a Mad Hatter type thing. But anyway. So we're just doodling out of the brain. Not really looking for perfection here. Part of that story that has Slash acquiring the hat was that perhaps he may have gone next door to another sort of retail place and saw a belt, a very specific belt, and used that belt to adorn the hat that he had acquired. So belt and hat, just an interesting thing. Some people put a feather in their cap. No matter. I'm sure we could all find those stories of Slash and his hats. Perhaps now it's all about a custom sort of thing, and they're all treated a little bit differently. Now it's whether or not I want to depict, I don't know. That's sort of the fun thing about doodle concept type stuff. Trying to figure out what kind of picture do I want this one to be. And I thought, okay, well, if he's at Hogwarts, he would have to be between the ages of, let's say, I mean, like starting out, you have to be kind of like grade 6 or grade 7, sort of like that junior high age. And how long would he last there? Oh, maybe first year, second year, I don't know. And then, as popularity and all that kind of stuff would have happened over time, would you be invited back? Would you be, are you still practicing some kind of magic out there? I should tell you that whenever I do that little zoom in sort of thing, I don't use that, like I'm not looking at the camera screen to draw. I would probably find that pretty distracting. But I do that just in case, somebody needs to see where I'm coming up with reference points. Have you ever heard the story of, like, what the hand of Superman or whatever superhero might look like? Is that you find out who drew that that character, and that's what the hand of whomever would look like. So I'm not going to totally use my own hand. I'm going to borrow pieces of it because, well, it's the reference that I have in front of me. Now I somehow doubt that when Slash was 11, or maybe, I don't know, you'd have to check, if Slash actually had the nose piercing at that point. I'm going to say possibly not. I like the idea that maybe for a made-up story, he could have. Yes, the concept of a hat and magicians for having, like, the ability to perform magic. It's kind of a big deal. But I think for some people, they would treat a hat a little differently than the way perhaps you and I might. People would hide behind hats. You'd almost be unrecognizable without it. And perhaps it's at this point that I might figure out where I want some of the hair to be. How far from the face it could be as well. Don't worry, that will clean up a little bit. We're going to put the nose ring in just for fun. And maybe fill out the eyebrows just a little bit more. It was fun to look back to when you might have first heard certain music and how that kind of made you feel. So I can recall listening to Guns N' Roses, and I was just a kid, right? So, if you were used to listening to Van Halen and stuff like that, and of course there would be more kind of stuff that was a little more I don't know, let's just say not really like super parent friendly to listen to. And so I remember there was a buddy of mine who had a cassette tape, which is wild to think about. I don't know where all my cassette tapes are at the moment, but let me show you one for example. Like, I'm sure that you guys know what this is. This kind of stuff is hilarious to me, though. What a strange thing a cassette tape is. I don't know if they'll ever really make a comeback. Magnetic tape doesn't always do well with staying in great shape. So anyway, it's just kind of a funny thing. They do break down after a while. Anyway, getting back to the story, which I kind of disappeared with for a moment. Yeah, one of my little buddies had a cassette tape, and I think the images on it were pretty outrageous. Well, so you spend a moment or two looking at that, but you would be like, anyway, so let's put it on. Let's find out what's going on with this band. Now, this person already listened to it, of course, and just kind of wanted my take on a couple of things, and didn't really give like an opinion of what I needed to hear. This was like a start to finish kind of thing. I just remember thinking, like, this is wild. Like, this band at that time was wild. And yeah, anyway. But there were some tunes on there. There was sort of like some ballady stuff, and then some really rockin' tunes, and songs about stuff that I just wasn't really familiar with, even though, mid 80s, we all would have listened to stuff like Motley Crue or Poison or whomever. Guns N' Roses was kind of different, though, still. Now, my mother's brothers, some of them I would say they're kind of in the same age range as Slash. Just sort of thinking back, you just sort of like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. You kind of relate to some people a little bit differently. So my mother would have been the second oldest of what would have been a total of 11 kids. The youngest would have passed away as a baby. But the age thing, which is kind of interesting to think about, is that my uncles would have sort of came along just a bit before I was born. My grandmother produced 11 kids, And so my mother would have been an adult, really, as my grandmother was just sort of finishing up. Kind of an interesting thing. So I may have talked a little bit about this hat and the 5-figure discount that would have brought it into Slash's life. I remember, I think I heard a story that when Slash was asked to play on Michael Jackson's album or to go on tour, and Michael always managed to get like phenomenal guitarists like Jennifer Batten, just outrageously talented. Anyway, Slash went to play with Michael and didn't bother bringing a hat, and I guess Michael was like visibly saddened because, you know, that thing that Slash would be kind of like known for, I guess, wasn't there. I don't know. It's kind of a funny sort of concept, I guess. So what I may do here, I may do a slight more bit of finishing to this drawing rather than just have it as like a rougher sketch. It's not necessary to do finished drawings in a sketchbook, but I think this one, just for tinkering's sake, will have a little bit more refinement. And maybe I'll think of a story, but it won't be just like related to Hogwarts or whatever, mainly because, you know, I'm not the writer of those stories. So, but I do kind of like the idea of a magician's hat. So I don't know, we'll see. And as I may have said, it is not necessary to totally finish something for a sketchbook. If you're capable of, you know, doing that kind of thing, why not? Every so often I go through my music collection, and it includes cassettes and CDs and vinyl records. And I try to listen to stuff to see how it kind of ages with me, how I feel about it. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about that. Some things, I don't know, they're not really the same to listen to anymore. Like I have some Eddie Murphy comedy albums, for example, that they're not really modern day friendly. I should find out when it was that Slash acquired his first top hat. Could have been around this age. I don't know. But I wonder. So like the head of the Gibson Les Paul guitar that he plays, very similar to kind of like the palm shape of the hand. It'd be interesting to, you don't have to have a rabbit come out of the hat here, but wouldn't it be interesting to see the neck of the guitar come out of there? I don't mind that concept-wise. But I'm not going to color in that hat yet. But I will show you some of the process that I would use to do that. Let's put this hat on some sort of table or shelf. So it's not just floating in the air. We'll outline it. And then we'll end the video, and then perhaps we'll start another video right after, just so that this is done in segments so that you don't have a 3-hour video. So let's call that kind of end of part 1, off the top of the head, Slash's hat, 5-finger discount. I don't know. And perhaps seeing something interesting. Okay, well, no, I'm going to end that video there, and then I'm going to immediately start up the camera again, just to break down the runtime. So anyway, that's it for now. Join me if you like for the next part. We'll see you soon.